like they say in the Deep South, we are cooking with gas now. The SEC has formulated a 10-game season format for the 2020 football season. So now the answers are starting to roll in. Again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. We're talking Auburn football. Go ahead and like the video, comment. Please leave your comments. Leave a like, a share, especially share this to any of your media outlets out there. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. So in the past few weeks, we've seen the major Power 5 conferences making amendments to their particular schedules. Then you have some teams out of the FCS that have decided, you know what, we're not going to do football at all this year. You look at the Division II, especially locally here in the Deep South, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, which has historic Tuskegee University, Morehouse College, Morris Brown, and all Fort Valley State, Albany State, all those schools. They have said, nope, we're not having a season this year. Then you look over to the SWAC conference, the FCS here in the Deep South, where a lot of those conference teams actually play against Power 5 teams, especially with Alcorn State out of the SWAC conference, which was scheduled to play against Auburn in Auburn as a season opener. The SWAC conference says, nope, we are not going to do a season this year. That eliminates the Magic City Classic in Birmingham, Alabama, where Alabama A&M and Alabama State have played for as many years as we can remember. That will not happen. So here it is, the SEC, I believe, hands were tied after the ACC made their decision to go to an 11-game season, which included welcoming Notre Dame temporarily into the conference to fill this thing out. But see, here's the thing. The ACC did an 11-game with a +1. But here's the catch to the +1. The +1 team had to come to the state. That's the +1, meaning the out-of-conference team has to play the game in the state, same state of the ACC conference team. So when we look at all of that, we look at the very beginning of the season where this thing is mostly affected. Georgia versus University of Virginia was going to take place in Atlanta, Georgia. That can't happen because, one, I know Georgia's not going to Virginia just to play a game against the Cavaliers. Alabama and USC had nothing to do with this. That game was already canceled when the Pac-12 went to a conference-only season. The biggest impact, I think, for most of the people in the Deep South, especially when you look at very, very marquee, very, very intriguing matchups, you look at Auburn versus North Carolina. With the +1, I was reading through it, and I was like, okay, oh, man. And when I saw the stipulations of the +1, I was like, you know what? This game is not happening because, one, Auburn is not, I just don't see Auburn agreeing to terms to play a game in Chapel Hill. Also, I mean, best case scenario, being able to play in the Belk Stadium, I think that's what it is, where the Carolina Panthers play in Charlotte. I mean, that would have been kind of a cool game. I think Auburn has a nice little alumni base up in Charlotte, but either way, from a business standpoint, ain't nobody scared, but I just don't see why you would voluntarily play against what should be one of the up-and-coming teams in the ACC, agree to a home game just because this neutral site game got canceled. Now, I do believe these two teams should play real soon, but not under these circumstances. So here it is in 2020. The SEC season is going to start September the 26th. Now, here's where that's kind of sort of tricky. Auburn was actually scheduled to take on Ole Miss September the 19th. So I'm assuming maybe that game will start on the 26th. And as we look further into the season, other games that are normally staples in the Deep South that will be affected. Because if you think about the Southeastern Conference and the Atlantic Coast Conference, those conferences intermingle on a lot of levels, especially with the in-state rivalries. So here's some games you're not going to see this year. You're not going to see Florida versus Florida State. You're not going to see South Carolina versus Clemson. You're not going to see Georgia versus Georgia Tech. And you're not going to see Kentucky versus Louisville because, you know what? When I think about it, the Kentucky versus Louisville game could have happened But now, when we look at the rules of the SEC is going with a straight conference only 10-game schedule. So that's why the Kentucky versus Louisville game won't happen. So as we look to this, so now you guys just got to be patient, because normally the season would have kicked off for the SEC last week of August. Now you got to wait till September 26th. That's assuming that this trend kind of goes down and, everything falls into place to make this particular season happen. Now, starting that actually could help the SEC with, preparation. That could give, especially teams like Auburn, who have the offensive line situation going on, have some sketchiness with the secondary. That gives these teams a little bit more time to prepare, because when you're talking about an all SEC schedule, you better be ready for that work. All right, guys, once again, this is my time here. My name is Kennard Vernon Stewart, your Auburn enthusiast, alumnus, and analyst of Auburn football. Like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.